Hello and good evening, everyone. I really quickly want to go ahead and start the stream off by first and foremost giving a major apology to each and every one of you guys for not abiding by my word and not abiding by the schedule for trying to stream on Friday night. Basically, we were in a mad dash to make sure that everything that was for the everything, and I do mean everything, for trip plans and that sort of confirmation for the up-and-coming Japan trip was 100% locked down, nailed down, and confirmed. So yeah, I'm on main because this is a card gaming. The topic of this live stream does concern card games, and yeah, you may be wondering, yeah, why? What's going on here? How come I'm on a different channel? But yeah, welcome to the main channel. This is where I talk about all things card games and possibly some other personal effects. Yeah. Been feeling basically all the emotions, zombie. Thank you for tuning in. Funnily enough, I'm about to start talking about the adventure that I had over at the Bushiroad Championship Series in Tampa Bay, Florida, in just a matter of moments. So, I do really mean, like, my initial plan for post this event was to requesting dark mode. Dark mode. Can you... Now, hang on. Can you... I think this will just depend on the page you're viewing. Some pages just don't have dark mode supported. I'm not sure. I mean, this is just my layout. For what's that worth? Requesting that I stay in light mode. I don't know if I can make this page dark mode, question mark? Generally, most websites that will load in the default theme, I guess, but there's not really much else I can do. Again, I apologize for may or may not being able to switch between light and dark mode. Oh no, that's a cookie bot. That's not a dark mode thing, and that takes you to the top. This is just a Bushiroad website for what that's worth. But yeah, staying in light mode. I mean, unironically though, if this was a gaming stream, requesting Metroid Prime 2. Metroid Prime 2 will be... I may actually stream on the Nidera gaming channel. That sound like a good compromise, zombie? Does that sound like a good compromise? And this is a big... Also for the rest of the chat. For all the viewers here at home, would you all like to see me play Metroid Prime 2 at a later date? Like, after I come back, of course. Which, again, we'll talk about Japan in a little bit. And again, I'm going to go ahead and just also let you guys know that this stream is going to be on the rather short side. Probably under 2 hours in total. But, it's going to be question time pretty darn soon anyway. So, yeah. I'm going to go back to what I was saying before. Yes, banger game. Yeah, the Metroid Prime games are bangers. Yeah, of course. So, as you guys may or may not already... yes. Hey, welcome to the stream, King Cleric. And yeah, we're about to go ahead and start talking about Cardfight Vanguard, the trading card game that I'm all too much a passionate fan for. If you do have Metroid Prime Trilogy, I'll run co-op with you. Yeah, more than likely, probably. It's a big... I think it's gonna happen. We'll see from there. But yeah, I want to get back to what I was doing. Yeah. I had a few goals in mind for the stream for me to talk about the Bushiroad Championship Series, Bushiroad Summerfest, and the up-and-coming Japan trip that I will be embarking on in just under 24 hours. Actually, probably closer to that of... it's going to be probably closer to 22 hours by 8 p.m. tonight on my side. So... I'm going to go ahead and begin with talking about the Bushiroad Championship Series 24-25 event. So, a few weeks ago, back on February 15th and 16th, I'm very blind on 2 and 3, gotta prep on 4. Fair enough. Very fair. Yeah, I'll do my best to be reading chat messages. If I break away from, say, the narrative and everything, big... apologies on that one. I'm both trying to go ahead and get a narrative out and to talk about talk with you guys one final time before we go to Japan. And again, I'm pretty happy that I'm getting to do this one final time before I leave. So, oh yeah, I just got back from the Bushiroad Championship Series in Tampa Bay, Florida, which was held in the Tampa Convention Center. I played the two big main events here, Cardfight Vanguard Standard, as you can read from over there. If I'll go ahead and zoom in a little bit, just for the viewers at home who may or may not be able to see this. But I entered the Cardfight Vanguard Standard event and Cardfight Vanguard Premium event. So, with that being said, I plan on talking about the, I plan on talking about the pair of Vanguard events that I entered. There were plenty of side events that I could have entered, but I unfortunately did not have enough time on my side to enter any of these events. So yeah. Funnily enough, there is somebody in the chat, Zombie, who I actually ended up going with, and I actually ended up, we had a small car and everything, and we all went to the event together, for all of you guys who may or may not be aware, for those who were wondering. Yeah, I actually get to talk about my adventure and everything. So, the car ride there and back wasn't too bad, pretty uneventful, aside from day one where, we got lost with parking, but we managed to make it to registration on time. But me just worrying about whether or not my car would be back in the lot in one piece. Because apparently the parking fee I paid was only to a certain time, but apparently, by the time this was over, and we were all just not moving on to Top Cut, the car was still there, and I was pretty darn happy. So, with that being said, I'm actually going to go ahead and talk about gaming for a second. Card gaming. So, I entered the Bushiroad Championship Series Day 1 Cardfight Vanguard Standard event with a Messiah deck. I went ahead and pivoted tabs on my Firefox browser for me to go ahead and show you the Tempo Messiah build that that I ended up taking to the event. Now, there's a few pros and cons about this list that I went ahead and crafted up. The big pro is that this is a deck I was very, very familiar with, and I'm very, very well versed on how to play. If you guys do not know how to play Cardfight Vanguard, I do apologize if a lot of terms I'm going to be throwing out terms left and right, but for those who know, you guys will probably understand exactly what I'm talking about, for what that's worth. Now, as I was mentioning, this is pretty much what I take with me to day one. Now, I was going to do a deck profile with like live cardboard and everything, but right now, I'm a little lazy and I don't feel like grabbing my bag and taking out the cardboard. And Bushiroad's own deck log, what is that thing called? The deck log for Bushiroad actually is pretty darn good for what it's worth. So, where were we? Oh yeah, the deck profile. So, the ride deck consisted of the standard Messiah ride line of Neon Messiah, Asleep Messiah, Awaking Messiah, and Alter Ego Messiah, which, if you are going to play a Messiah deck, that ride line is mandatory and cannot be changed. And for good measure, you always put in an energy generator in your ride deck. The energy generator itself, for those of you at home and are not aware, is a mandatory game mechanic in the game of Cardfight Vanguard. Now, I'm going to go ahead and get on to the main deck, starting with 2 copies of Macro Cosmic Dragon Mars Toge. Now, I really like this card in particular, since it both allows you to go ahead and dig through your deck for an additional grade 3. It does have 2 other pretty darn good skills on both the rear and Guardian Circle. The Guardian Circle one will never come up because your Vanguard will never get to grade 4 on your opponent's turn, so that second ability is pretty much useless. The rearguard ability of being able to Soul Charge 1 and have Mars Toge in 10k is pretty good, especially since this deck uses Soul. Soul's another game mechanic within Cardfight Vanguard. Again, I'm pretty much going to be going over a lot of game mechanics left and right. So for those of you at home who have any questions about Cardfight Vanguard or want to know exactly what thing is which, go ahead and just ask me and I will do my absolute best. But yeah, I played 2 copies of Mars Toge, and I actually regret playing 2 copies of this thing and only 2 copies. I really wish I thought ahead and actually considered using a third copy of Mars Doge. In theory, there could have been a way to implement it into my list by possibly cutting something like, say, a copy of Destiny Dealer, or possibly even Sacrifice Messiah, down to 3. But I'll get to talking about the rest of my list shortly. Actually, no, the ideal thing would have probably been to put Go Ahead Makani, another deck card that I run in this build, down to 2, which I believe I do right now as we speak. The other card that I run in this deck is Alter Ego Messiah. The main reason I play Alter Ego Messiah in this list at all, at 1 copy, is that I do play a card called Genesis Dragon Excelix Messiah, which requires you to discard an Alter Ego Messiah in order to stride into it. So that's why this card is, unfortunately, mandatory. Now, a new booster set just came out called, I think it's called Is it Drag something Genesis? Whatever it's called. It has new support for the Messiah Ride line, and you do not actually, which removes the entire need for you to run Alter Ego Messiah in your main deck at all. And you can just run the Trans-Else Messiah as your main Stride card, which we'll get to the Stride mechanic and the Stride deck in just a matter of moments. 4 copies, Generation Dread Genesis, that's correct. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Cleric. Hey Nidera, is it hard to play Cardfight Vanguard? It is not. I will actually level with you. The game is pretty darn easy to pick up and play for the beginner level. But in terms of exactly the deck you're piloting, that's a whole nother story in and of itself. There's going to be a huge, how do I describe it? Like, there's a huge skill differential depending on the build that you are playing. There are going to be some decks that are just basically near auto-win, near autopilot, and the combos are pretty darn easy to remember. I would even argue that my own build, playing this Messiah deck, isn't actually that too straightforward. It's very, as in card games, there's a whole concept called tempo, where you're basically not committing to your full board and going full send and full combo, and just doing little by little as the turns progress. Something like tempo might be a tempo deck could theoretically be decent for a beginner, for what that's worth. There are some pretty good beginner-centric decks. Matter of fact, Avali, I highly recommend, if you are trying to get into Vanguard as a new player, consider buying the Stardust Blaze trial deck. The Stardust Blaze trial deck is a pretty darn good product, which gives you a ready-to-play deck for Vergila, in spite of the fact that Vergila is, in terms of the meta deck order, I think it's either tier 3 or possibly even untiered right now. But it's not a bad starting point for what that's worth. I really want to do a Vanguard new player workshop and live stream, which is going to be something down the pipeline that I'm more than likely going to consider doing. I understand that Cardfight Vanguard is in a space where you are going to be spending in the 3 figures almost mandatory to get into the game, but I would argue there are plenty, and I do mean plenty, of budget deck options out there for you. In spite of the fact that these budget options are unfortunately not going to be anywhere near meta tier. But I'd argue it's all in the pilot. So that's a whole other thing in and of itself. There's a lot of nuance when it comes to playing Cardfight Vanguard. There's players like Zombie and Cleric who can probably give you a lot, and I do mean a lot, of insight into playing the Cardfight Vanguard trading card game. So I recommend you speak with them, if you like, at a later point to go ahead and get some insight. Yeah, but I'd say learning how to play the game, not that bad. Now, when it comes to deck building and $100 to get into the game, that's crazy. That's $100+ to get into the game if you're looking to go ahead and compete at the BCS, or like shop. Actually, at the shop tournament level, I'm pretty sure you could spend under $100 on some budget decks. But again, with budget decks, you're going to have an uphill battle against some of the best decks in the game right now, such as Levidros and Odium, for example, and even Varga, where decks like, say, Odium can do the Vanguard equivalent of Time Walk against you. And then you've got, what is it? Varga can basically But Varga has like all the removal tools in its arsenal, so if your deck commits a whole lot of board and doesn't have any means of recovery or protection, Varga will literally just annihilate a lot of decks that are very much borderline and just lack that sort of protection. I will go on ahead and say for certain for myself that I have a bad matchup to Varga. And Levidros is just best deck in the format because its multi-attack game is pretty much almost second to none right now. It's pretty darn good. Pivoting back to the deck profile, I run 4 copies of Bullet of Creation Pansmeria for exactly its first ability. If you put it on the Guardian Circle from your hand or discard it from while riding in your ride deck, you can either choose to pay the cost of either Counterblast 1 or Energy Blast 3 to draw a card. The second ability is relevant if you are playing a deck that uses the Persona Ride mechanic. However, this deck does not Persona Ride, and you can only ride onto Alter Ego Messiah because you gain something called a Alter Ego Messiah Crest when you ride into the main grade 1 of the deck, which is Asleep Messiah. Unfortunately, Decklog doesn't necessarily have the Alter Ego Messiah Crest available, so that'll be something I discuss at a later point. Units that you can Persona Ride to are indicated by this icon below the grade 3 and the ability symbol of Twin Drive, right over there, right where my mouse cursor is at. The Persona Ride is a activated ability that like the vast majority of grade 3s have access to. So this second ability doesn't really come up, but you can read it if you like. Yeah, that's it for Pansmeria. The other main grade 4 that I ran in this build was Kalazar Klein. Now, in an ideal world, I would be playing something like Liel and Valtrossa, which is a pretty darn expensive Vanguard card for what that's worth. I'll go ahead and look this one up real quick. I'm gonna be pivoting between the Vanguard wiki and stuff. Yeah, Gallant, Mechanical Agility, Valtrossa, and Liel. But this card is actually pretty darn expensive. I'm pretty sure this card is over $50, or even, and it could be even higher than that. It's pretty darn close to approaching 100 or something, because this card was only given one printing. It's a chase rare in a pretty limited set that, again, you only get a limited number of packs out of, and you don't get as many packs per box. And this card is very, very versatile for both Keter, Sanctuary, and Bront Gate builds. In an ideal world, I would be playing this card at 4 copies, but I am not. So back to this deck profile. Kalazar Klein's pretty intuitive, and I do like it for the early game, where at the end of the battle that Kalazar Klein attacks, if you have the Alter Ego Messiah Crest, which you always will have, it can sacrifice itself. You may then view the top 3 cards of your deck, choose a card with a grade equal to or less than your Vanguard, put it on an open rearguard circle as locked, and the rest go to the bottom of the deck in any order that you like. So, when you're attacking, whether or not you're in the early game or mid-game, Klein's pretty darn versatile. Klein's not exactly the best in the late game, but there are some instances where, theoretically, it could come up. But because you don't search your library enough, it's like, that order just is not really going to ever be dynamically changing anytime soon. And Kalazar Klein is just a 15k attacker if any player has a locked card, which, if you draw into 2 copies of Kalazar Klein, you will pretty much have instant access to a 15,000 power attacker on an opposing grade 2 player's turn to go for that rush turn. Or even if you're forced to go first, you can use this as a pretty darn good offensive tool too. And this can then, and it dodges removal because it removes itself, and you can get just about almost anything else from your deck that is not an order card to replace it. You can replace it with a Makani, a Sacrifice Messiah, Pansmeria, or an Arrestor Messiah, generally. That's what you'll be doing in the early game. You can also replace it with a Marstoge or an Alter Ego Messiah, which sometimes I've put down an Alter Ego Messiah. And now for the main playmaker of this deck. It is Arrestor Messiah. This is a grade 2 card that for the generate, it has an ability that is restricted to Generation Break 1, where you have 1 or more face-up G units in your G zone. I'm going to talk about this shortly. So cards that have GB restriction means that their abilities will only ever be active if you have at least 1 G unit in your G zone face up at any point. So whenever Arrestor Messiah attacks, if you have a Vanguard with Messiah in its card name, it gets an extra 5,000 power until the end of the battle, and then it locks itself. Locked cards are not able to do anything at all if they're on the board. They are unlocked and turned face up as stand at the end of the owner's turn generally. And the lock mechanic's actually pretty darn important to this deck. So we'll get into that. And that is every grade 2 in my build. We're going to go ahead and move on to the grade 1s. We've got 3 copies of Flowers in Vacuum Cosmo Wreath, which are considered nullifies. These can effectively just make it so that you take no damage from that current attack, and pretty much the unit cannot quote unquote be hit, meaning basically, again, even if the opponent's Vanguard or Rearguard or whatever has enough power in the battle phase to land a hit, if it's either equal or higher, it won't go through. The same is also true basically for Elementary Sanctitude. This card is restricted to 1 copy in a deck and can be used entirely for free if an opponent's Vanguard has the triple drive ability. Now, Cosmo Wreath has the downside of you needing to discard a card if your hand has 2 or more cards in your hand. And that one's slightly inferior, but the cards are functionally identical. It's just that Elementary Sanctitude is free provided your opponent has a Vanguard with a twin drive ability, because you must discard with Sanctitude, even if it is the last card in... I'm sorry, yeah, you have to discard with Sanctitude, and if it's the last card in your hand and you attempt to use it as a nullify, it doesn't work unless your opponent has the triple drive ability. Whereas this other card, Cosmo Wreath, can. Next few cards. Destiny Dealer. Whenever you are paying the cost to use the Stride, it is a discard. You may discard it as grade 3, and if it's in your hand, and you have the Alter Ego Messiah crest, you can discard it to fetch a grade 3 card with Messiah in its name, which is always going to be Alter Ego Messiah, and you can either fetch from your deck or your drop zone to put it in your hand. Now, Stride is going to be the primary way you access your G units, provided you are on Alter Ego Messiah and your opponent's on grade 3. I'm going to talk about this a little bit later in this profile. So, Sacrifice Messiah. I played this card at 4 copies as well. This card is also Generation Break or GB restricted, where its abilities at the end of the battle that it boosted, if you have a Vanguard with Messiah in its card name, by paying the cost of having it lock itself, you can choose one of your Vanguards, have it gain 5,000 power until the end of the turn, and then if you have no face-up cards in your damage zone, you may countercharge 1. Now, this plays into what the Counter Blast and Counter Charge abilities do. In Vanguard, in order to win the game, you have to get your opponent to 6 damage. That is one of the primary win conditions of Cardfight Vanguard. You have to get them to 6 cards in their damage zone. Can be face up or face down or whatever, but generally, there's very few instances where you'll ever have... Well, actually, in a lot of instances, you'll have a damage zone that has cards entirely face down, which, if you're in that sort of spot, Sacrifice Messiah can get you a damage flipped face up for you to use some pretty darn powerful counter blast abilities, such as the ones for the Stride. Next card. The final grade 1 in this deck is called Go Ahead Mikani. It's got 2 relevant abilities. The second ability that says Glitter and Chaos, I'm not going to go over this because this is only really an ability that works with the Chaos deck, or Chaos deck, if you will. So when you place it on a rearguard circle, you may choose to Soul Charge 1. Cards in the Soul stack are all underneath your Vanguard, and you can remove cards from the Soul stack to pay for Soul Blast abilities, such as the ones of cards like, say, Alter Ego Messiah, where he's got a Generation Break ability, where if you have 2 or more cards that are face up in your G zone, you can Soul Blast a single card whenever a locked card is unlocked and draw a card. It has a secondary activated ability where in your main phase, if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard, you can move it to the Soul and then choose up to 1 grade 3 card with Mikani in its card name from your Soul and call it to rearguard. Now, you only really pay the cost for the secondary activated ability. You're never going to have a grade 3 Mikani in this build. At least, I don't play a grade 3 Mikani in this build. But generally, a lot of Messiah builds don't have it. And, like, the very, very, very vast majority don't. And they just play this as a means to get more cards into their Soul stack. And that is about it for the grade 1s. In this build, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the trigger lineup. In Cardfight Vanguard, all decks must run 16 cards known as trigger units, and the trigger units have a pretty darn important, what are they called? Pretty darn important role in the battle phase when attacking with your Vanguard, and also whenever your Vanguard takes damage. So in this build, I run 4 criticals. Primarily, I play the Patrol Robo Decker Cup. It has a triggered ability where at the end of the battle that it boosts, you can move it to your soul and give one of your units 2,000 extra power until the end of the turn. This does come up, and I can get extra soul for abilities that do indeed use the soul, such as like the one for Alter Ego Messiah as an example. The next card I run is a regular heal trigger. This one doesn't actually have an activated ability. This bit of text right here is just rules text for a heal trigger, and that's about it. Basically, you can only heal if you have equal either the same amount or more damage than that of the opposing player. I run 4 heal triggers in this deck, but I also run what are called effect heals, which are heals with ability text. For example, one who pierces transient causality has the following ability where if your opponent's Vanguard is less than... If your Vanguard's grade is less than your opponent's Vanguard's grade, it gains an extra 10,000 power until the end of the battle. It's pretty darn useful against other Stride deck sets, the Mirror Match, or in an ideal world, when you're going second and do want to defend in the early game against non-Stride deck sets. Lady Healer of the Creaking World is a heal trigger that says when you put it on the Guardian Circle when defending, if the opponent's attacking unit has attacked 2 or more times this turn, it gains an extra 15,000 power, which does come up in some matchups. Obofold functions just the same, except where the required condition is that the opponent's critical has to be 2 or greater, and the critical is increased by a non-trigger effect ability. Or if its original critical is 2 or greater, which there are very few cards in Cardfight Vanguard, especially in the standard format, where the latter is true. I run 4 more vanilla critical triggers. Now, again, this doesn't really do much else aside from, like, all the only other things that are down below right there are rules text for how a critical trigger works. I run 3 copies of what are called front triggers. These are front triggers with ability text, where if your opponent's when defending, if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, it has an extra 5,000 power when defending. So it's pretty darn good to escape those magic numbers of 28,000 to 32,000 power attacks. To round up the trigger lineup, we run the 1 over trigger because you can only run 1 over trigger in your deck, and this card is basically mandatory. It's almost like it's both an auto-win button and just a last-minute save as well. Pretty darn good both offensively and defensively. I never won the game at all through the over-trigger. Matter of fact, I don't even think I've even really saw it for the duration of the tournament. It has a triggered ability where if you reveal it offensively, you can double the power and critical of all of the front row units that are in your front row until the end of the turn. And then that's double the power and critical. And unlike most trigger units, which apply a 10,000 power bonus until the end of the battle phase, over triggers provide a 100 million power boost to one card of your choice. But it actually turns out to be 200 million because of this secondary ability. Only have a few more order cards to talk about that are in the main deck and the Stride cards, and I'll talk about my tournament report. I run 3 copies of Prelude of Genesis. It has 2 abilities. The first one is that if you pay 1 Counterblast and play this as your normal order for turn, when having an Alter Ego Messiah crest, you can take any card that has Messiah in its name from your drop zone, call it to a rearguard circle, then lock one of your opponent's rear guards. And it has the secondary ability where if you discard it from your hand while paying for the cost of the Stride, you can then choose one of your Vanguards or Heart cards. The Heart is going to be the card underneath the G unit, and then until the end of the turn, you can reduce the next Counterblast that you pay for that card, whether that be the Heart or the Stride card, buy one. And the final card that I run is called Bracing Angel Ladder. Its main purpose is that if you play this in your normal order, as your normal order during your turn, you then draw a card, Bracing Angel Ladder goes into your soul, and this is basically a Teferi's protection, where your rearguards cannot be chosen and put onto any other rearguard circle, can be put on any other than rearguard circle by the opponent's card's effects. And your Vanguard has an extra 5,000 power. But this is effectively a Teferi's protection. A lot of decks that have bad matchups to removal run the Bracing Angel Ladder as a means to get protection from everything. And that is it for the main deck. On to the Stride Zone, I run 4 copies of Genesis Dragon Amnesty Messiah. It has a pretty darn good activated ability where if you counterblast one, flip a card in your G-Zone face up, you're generally going to be turning over the other card in this deck, which is Genesis Dragon Excelix Messiah. Pick any number of players of locked cards, unlock them, and then choose one of your rearguards. It gains 5,000 power until the end of the turn for each card unlocked by this ability, which is going to range anywhere between 5,000 extra power to 25,000 extra power, depending on the number of cards that you unlock by this ability. This is the main card that you stride into. The other card that you're generally going to be flipping face up with Amnesty Messiah, and that you don't go into as much, is Genesis Dragon Excelix Messiah. It has a triggered ability for Generation Break 2. Oh, you have to discard a Grade 3 Messiah card. It has a specific stride condition. Most cards you can stride by discarding any combination of cards that either add up to Grade 3 or Grade 3 or higher. When you attack with an Excelix Messiah, you can pay the cost of counterblasting one card, choose any number of locked cards in play, unlock them. If you unlock a card, you then choose the same number of rearguards as your opponent, as a number of cards unlocked by this ability, stand them as in untap them. They can then attack again in this battle phase. Then all the front row units gain 10,000 power, and Excelix Messiah gets a critical. And yeah, that's about it for me discussing my deck, for what I took with me to the standard format, and it looks like it went off a good while. We're now 40-so-odd minutes into the stream, but I think it's closer to 30 because I spent almost 9 minutes trying to just promote the stream. First things first, matchups. My round 1 opponent played Liel Odium. I ended up losing round 1 to someone by the name of Arlex Adra. I'm also going off of their, I've put down the name, their actual, name that their actual name, if able, and, their first name, if able, and their gamer, and their Bushiroad in-game name. So I played against Arlex Adra. I'm back. What did I miss? I've basically finished talking about. I finished the deck profile. So we're now onto the tournament report, zombie. Which I have a surprise for the viewers at home when that comes up. So I played against Liel Odium and lost. So pretty much it was pretty darn close though. So what was it? I'm trying to think here. Yeah. In this matchup, the Liel Odium player basically did what was effectively the Vanguard equivalent of Time Walking Me, which for this card, Destined 1 of Time Liel equals Odium, has this specific divine skill, where at the end of the battle that it attacks and the player controlling it has 5 or more regress gauges, you can discard 2 cards from your hand, and then you get an additional turn. And then there's a whole bunch of other conditions, like, for example, the Liel Odium player does not get a ride phase, and the ride and main phase are not performed. Oh! Yeah, you get an additional turn, but the ride and main phase are not performed, and Liel Odium gets 1 fewer drive checks. I'm surprised they went out of their way to say that you get an additional turn, and that ride and main phase are skipped. I mean, in theory, they could have said, maybe wording it as trying to get an additional combat phase doesn't work all too well compared to, say, where Magic the Gathering, where getting an additional combat phase actually is okay for the most part with the way they've designed cards. So this is what I mean by getting time walked. So when you get time walked in this instance, pretty much all power boosts that you have from damage triggers, they go away. So this is where, so say for example, if you hit an over trigger and that just stymied their whole turn, well, they get to go around that, because if they go for their divine skill, they basically go around it, and your Vanguard's back down to its normal value of 13,000 power. And you do want to be careful, because I think they can divine skill you if you are on grade 2, if they're able to get 5 or more regress gauges fast enough. What's the Magic the Gathering term of cannot untap? MTG term of the equivalent that cannot untap. There's a lot of... In Magic the Gathering, there's a few terms that are like this. I know, for example, in Magic the Gathering, cards with stun counters are tapped, and they cannot and instead of untapping, you remove a stun counter, for example. Now I genuinely want to know if such a thing exists. Term for being unable to untap. Tapped or locked down. They're just tapped. Google says that the card is just tapped, and that's basically Gridora. Yeah, thank you for asking that particular question. So I guess it's just tapped or stunned, I guess, if in the case of it having a stun counter on it. I'm thinking that if we're looking at Gridora effectively just applies stun counters to both Vanguards and Rearguards effectively. Now, after losing to Lealodium in the first round, I went up against somebody by the name of Iota Turtle, who was on Varga Rakshasha. Now, Varga Rakshasha is a pretty darn scary matchup for myself. Now, I do want to go ahead and read in Varga Dragries Rakshasha's entire main triggered ability. Now, again, there's a whole thing with being in Malworm state, but pretty much that's a given if you play Varga. You cross-ride onto Rakshasha, and then you're on Malworm for the rest of the game. It's kind of like the Unison Dress is very similar for Leonorn. That's a whole different thing in and of itself. Its main abilities is that it has a once per turn ability where whenever this unit in the Malworm state attacks a Vanguard, you retire all of the front row rear guards. It gains an extra 10,000 power until the end of the turn. Then at the end of the battle, the player who attacked with Rakshasha can then counterblast 1, retire all back row rear guards, stand it, and it gets a drive -2 until the end of the turn. So pretty much every turn, Varga Dragries Rakshasha has removal all the time. It's actually kind of insane. It also has a divine skill where if it attacked and the unit was able to stand by its original auto ability, you counterblast 1, stand it, and it gets drive +2 until the end of the turn. So that thing can get 3 attacks, 2 of which that have drive checks. So as you already know, my deck is pretty darn board dependent. Now, for my opponent, now I kept an hand after I pretty much chose to keep rather than do a mulligan, but I drew into the Bracing Angel ladder that I talked about earlier on my opponent's first their first Rakshasha turn. And I hit a 6 damage heal, and I won the game. And that's what ended up happening. And he couldn't guard everything that I threw at him. So I won. In round 3, I actually had to play against the mirror match. As in, I played against another person who was running Messiah as their main Vanguard. Now, unlike myself, this Messiah player had all of the fixins. They had Valtrossa. They had... Oh, sorry. I'll talk about that in a minute. They had Valtrossa. They had some other card from the from the Festival collection. Hang on. I can probably go get that in just a minute. From the Festival booster that was actually insane. I know there's Seyfert. Is that right? Yes, this guy had Seyfert, where it has a triggered ability where if it's placed on the rearguard circle, well, actually no, you use the second ability where if it's on rearguard or drop when discarded during your turn, you can then Energy Blast 3 and remove it from the game. You choose one of your discarded cards and put it into your hand. So it's pretty darn useful to get back cards that you discard for striding, for example. And that card is actually insane. Now, I think I had decent tempo for the most part against the matchup. Now, the only thing that my opponent, Dark Ignis, had was that he ended up flipping the Brantgate Overtrigger, and I simply could not block the rest of his onslaught. So I took 2. At the time when he hit the Overtrigger, I was at 2 damage. I didn't mind taking 2 extra damage. Now, I did the math up. Unfortunately, I didn't have a Nullify, and I couldn't really guard against the rest of his onslaught, so I ended up losing that game. And I also learned something from this game. You can actually use the Soul Blast ability of the main Vanguard in your deck, Alter Ego Messiah, on your opponent's turn in the mirror match. So here's how you do that. When a card is unlocked, you can Soul Blast 1 and then draw a card. And this is for either side of the board, even your opponent's. Back on subject. When you go over my game, here's my code. Yes, we'll talk about that. We're almost there. In round 4, I played against Rocket, who was on the new Welstra. If I'm not mistaken, the new Welstra's pretty good for what it's worth. I need to go ahead and go look it up. I think it's Welstra Blitz Arms. Welstra Blitz Arms has so a lot of these product cards actually provide debuffs or nerfs to your Vanguard's power during your opponent's turn. Vanguard has one of the unique distinctions where cards' power can actually go into the negative numbers. Now, that gets pretty interesting, to say the very least. I'll even talk a little bit about how negative numbers fully interact in premium as well. So, in a lot of games, like say in Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Magic the Gathering, a lot of cards, the floor is 0. In Vanguard, there's no such floor. So, negative numbers very much exist. I don't think negative numbers exist in Magic the Gathering, but if somebody can confirm me on this one, do let me know. But yeah, negative numbers do exist in Vanguard. There's going to be some products which make it so that product order cards which will decrease your opponent's power. If I can get the order product to load up for me. Yeah, for example, this card, Mobile Fortress of Obliteration Freischütz Maximum, gives a debuff, negative 5,000 power to your opponent's Vanguard. And then this thing can also be... And then you can also crew this as if you were crewing a vehicle as well. Pretty darn good. Yeah, so I have a bad matchup to this. So I ended up losing, and I just drew a really bad hand anyways. Round 5, I went up against somebody by the name of Jamie, who was on the Leonorn deck, and just ended up flying into Tampa because he wanted something to do. He was just going to be in Tampa for the weekend. He was playing Leonorn Vivace, and unfortunately, he was relatively new to the deck and just wasn't doing so hot with the Leonorn Vivace deck. I did pretty well for that matchup, to say the very least. There's not a whole lot to talk about since, well, he ended up not having as many cards in his hand, and he didn't exactly know what everything that he was doing with all of his plays. He wasn't getting like insane numbers with his Leonorn Vivace doing all the fun little boost stuff that you can do in restanding your whole board. So I ended up winning that one. Not much to write home about. Now, my final round actually was somebody who went up who's actually in our chat right now. It was Zombie. I ended up having to play him in round 6, and I took my 4th loss and just chose to drop from the event. There was only 1 round left, and from that point it was kind of pointless to continue. So I pretty much had a pretty decent start to the game for what it was worth. Now, after the first stride turn, though, my deck's pace just dropped off, and he ended up taking the game. Now, he's actually chosen to go ahead and provide his deck log for the chat. I'm going to go ahead and copy this and actually go ahead and paste it into deck log so we can see what a winning deck that actually beat this deck is like. So here you go. Here is the Night Rose deck. Pretty darn good for what it... Pretty darn good deck, honestly. It's got pretty much all the upgrades it needs to be very, very competitive with a minimal number of upgrades. There's quite a few expensive cards like Alvina, Sea Brave Shooter, and Philander. And I guess it used to be to a lesser extent in Largle, but not as much anymore. But yeah, this is a Stride deck. This is a Stride deck set with a very minimal amount of changes. But yeah, this is what he beat me with. This is a Night Rose deck. With these Stride deck sets, you get a pretty good deck out of the box that you do need to make a fair number of changes to compete with it at the Bushiroad Championship Series level. And unfortunately, that was it. My standard day was all kinds of ass. So that was that for standard day. So that I could save time in talking about premium day, I'll go ahead and just really quickly put into summation what my Narukami deck is. I played Narukami, and that's why I named this deck Bind Away. The main purpose of this deck is to bind the opponent's cards from both board and from the drop zone. Cautious! Hello, welcome! Magic the Gathering negative numbers would be funny because you have a -1 power creature that adds 0+1 to it when it attacks. Oh my. Yeah. Magic the Gathering negative numbers would be kind of funny. You're probably correct on that one. I don't actually know if negative numbers actually come up in Magic the Gathering. I need to speak with more Magic players just so that I'm aware. I'm only used to dealing with, like, positives. And even then, if a creature's toughness goes below 0, it dies due to state-based effects. So, negative numbers get interesting. I think the only way you could go negative is in the power side, which gets interesting. Alright, anyways, on to premium. I'm going to go ahead and go do the lightning round of a deck profile. I'm going to also go ahead really quickly, give another pretty darn quick shout out to Zombie yet again for providing like 95-ish or whatever % of this list. So we'll go ahead and start jumping into this. I've got one copy of Verena Esperaridea, one copy of Frying Shot Dragon, Crumb Stego, Indestructible. I think state-based effects get around Indestructible. Let me go ahead and check that. Oh wait, that's just magic. Yeah, hang on. Reduced to 0. It gets interesting. I'm pretty sure if you're able to get a creature to 0 toughness outside of combat in Magic the Gathering, say through -1/-1 counters, you actually can get rid of an indestructible creature. Yeah, 0 or less toughness always causes a creature to die. It's yeah, if a creature has toughness 0 or less, its power is put into the owner's graveyard and regeneration cannot place it. So yeah. Indestructible, I think, is only a temporary thing that protects it from being destroyed entirely exactly in battle, and cannot be targeted with cards that have destroy in them. Like, they cannot be dealt damage, as I think that's all. Like if like damage won't do it, but say -1/-1 counters will. Oh, and like anti-anthems will also do this as well. Magic the Gathering's a pretty complicated game. I'll go on ahead and just say that as much. But it argues pretty darn simple to play. Just the nitty-gritty gets pretty interesting. Back to the deck profile. Back to Vanguard for a second. One of the two main Vanguards of the deck is Eradicator, Vowing Saber Dragon Reverse. I run 3 copies of Dragonic Vanquisher for the main other Vanguard for this build. 4 copies of Eradicator, Spark Rays Dragon. 2 copies of Fiendish Sword Eradicator, Cho-Oh. 4 copies of Supreme Army Eradicator, Zuitan. 2 copies of Light Elemental Homily. 4 copies of Eradicator, Demolition Dragon. 4 copies of Isolation Eradicator, Nusku. 2 copies of the G version of Mighty Bolt Dragoon. Yes, there are cards that have the exact same name between various iterations of the Cardfight Vanguard card game. Like, for example, Mighty Bolt Dragoon, as an example, has both a version of this card for both the G era and V era format. Eldritch Esther, hello! It has been forever. Welcome to the stream. And then lastly, the only non-trigger grade 0 in this deck is Harbinger Draco Kid. You have to play a starter in your main deck. Otherwise, you have to choose a trigger, and then you'll be down out a trigger unit. And that's why I play Harbinger Draco Kid. Trigger lineup. I run 7 critical, I do believe. The 7 critical is 4 copies of Lightning of Triumphant Return Reseth. 4 copies of Rumble Dagger Draco Kid. 3 draw triggers in Wyvern Guard Gold, which are also Sentinels, meaning you can use them as nullifies. 1 over trigger in Dragon King Deity of Resurgence Dragveda. 4 heal triggers in Blitz Knuckle Dragon, which is a pretty good effect heal used full both in V Premium and Premium formats. And 1 stand trigger in Eradicator Sharp Impact Dragon. This deck runs 2 order cards. It runs 1 copy of Forbidal Surrogate and 1 copy of Elementaria Sanctitude. Now onto the G-Zone. Just like with every premium deck that exists in Cardfight Vanguard, it runs the 1 copy of Harmonix Messiah, 2 copies of the new Eroded Lightning Dragon Knight Zoros. I'm just hypnotized by your special interest now. Oh, goodness. You're hypnotized by Cardfight Vanguard. Well, I have a Discord server where you can talk to other Cardfight Vanguard players, and there are plenty of resources online to learn everything that there is to know about Cardfight Vanguard, including both the standard and the premium formats, which I'm talking about. 3 copies of Conquering Supreme Dragon Exterminate Dragon. 2 copies of Conquering Supreme Dragon Dragonic Vanquisher VMAX, which I never went into once. 1 copy of Conquering Supreme Dragon Stunverse Dragon. And lastly, 2 copies of Conquering Supreme Dragon Dragonic Vanquisher Voltage. You like listening to people talk. Hey, yeah. I almost never do these sorts of just chatting type streams. I'm mostly a gamer who mostly slaps either keys or buttons, turns knobs, or does special or does like motion inputs or stuff on a controller. Exterminate Dragon is a problem. It is? I see it as just a combo piece in Narukami, honestly, but that is just a perspective of looking at it. G Guardians. I forgot to talk about G Guardians. This is a G units are a thing in standard, but G Guardians are mostly a premium mechanic only. Same as stand triggers. 2 copies of Sky Guardian Dragon Counteract Dragon. 1 copy of Sky Guardian Supreme Dragon Bulwark Dragon. And then 2 copies of Sky Guardian Supreme Dragon Impede Dragon. Actually, my favorite card in this entire deck, if I'm going to be honest. Alright, my tournament report. Oh, hey, yeah, dragon emoji, woo! Yeah, I love my Thunder Dragons, and I love my Thunder Dragons in Narukami. Narukami has all all the strong thunder dragons, like Vanquisher and this guy. Unfortunately, I don't want to go too far into depth with premium because, unlike say standard, where it is kind of what is it? Where it is kind of easy to explain. Trying to explain how this works is like trying to explain entire interactions in like Legacy for Magic the Gathering. Sure, have 5 front row circles, draw 2 cards off of it, give 20k to your whole front row. Oh yeah, you can. Oh yeah, you did some pretty insane stuff with Narukami. It's like, I think is Narukami still meta? That's actually a really good question. I'm gonna be honest, I thought it was Pokemon at first, but quickly realized it wasn't. Who's to say that Game Freak may have actually helped inspire what is it called? Inspire Cardfight Vanguard. It, interestingly enough, one of the writers for the Yu-Gi-Oh! R manga actually helped in the creation of this card game, and this IP overall in general. Yeah, we have like an ex-Yu-Gi-Oh! Designer working on the design team for Vanguard. Matter of fact, I think a few years back, one of the people who helped run the Japanese division of Wizards of the Coast actually joined Bushiroad. Tier 2. Honestly fair. Tier 2 is pretty darn good in and of its own right. Alright, on to the tournament report for Premium. Welcome to round 1. So in round 1, I played against somebody who goes by the name of Zero2Pass on YouTube. Actual shoutouts to Zero2Pass on YouTube. I'm going to go ahead and go put down their name. I'm just going to quickly go ahead and just quickly shout him out in chat. He was technically a local player, but he moved out of my local area in my neck of the woods for work reasons. He went first. He skilled their power early by G-guarding, by using G-Guardians on my second stride turn. I misplayed by going into Voltage rather than Exterminate Dragon when they had open units and I could have drawn more cards. I was thinking I was going to be at an advantage with the power scaling, and yeah, my hand was okay, but unfortunately I lost the game. So because I made the wrong play, I lost the game. So that happens. Round 2, I went up against somebody by the name of Starling, and she was playing Shirayuki. So I actually went first and had some pretty darn output from my stride units, even riding into Vanquisher early on to go get the Zoroark Superior, stride. Now, when she went to grade 3, she drew into Bracing Angel Ladder, which gave her protection from everything. With those Shirayuki cards in play, and her being able to counterblast with 3 for all of those Shirayuki cards that are in play. Matter of fact, I can probably tell you exactly which Shirayuki card they went into. Just have to figure out which one of these is the Vanguard Wiki. What did I do with my Vanguard Wiki? There it is. Why I closed out my Vanguard Wiki is beyond me. Now all I have to do is figure out, there is a particular Shirayuki unit that absolutely just blew me out of the water here. I think it is 6 Flower of Phantasms, which has an triggered ability on Vanguard or Rearguard Circle. By the way, still with your boyfriend. Wonderful. Glad to hear that things are still working out pretty well. So, the main thing with this card, 6 Flowers of Phantasm Shirayuki, whenever a unit of the controller of 6 Flowers of Phantasm Shirayuki doesn't hit, if you have a Shirayuki Vanguard, you counterblast 1, choose one of your opponent's front row units, and give it minus 10,000 power, and if this unit is on the Vanguard Circle, you may choose to call a Shirayuki from its card name from drop zone to an open Rearguard Circle. She had 3 of these in play. That's negative 30,000 power, which gets pretty ridiculous, actually. Yeah. Actually, I think it was either 3 or 4 of them, and it was just crazy. I had to do some weird things with guarding. Matter of fact, this is like one of the very few matchups where I actually had to use Counteract Dragon to guard. And because she went into Bracing Angel Ladder, she couldn't bind anything, so I got the full 35,000 power guard to go through. Thankfully, I did hit a number of damage triggers, and I just about barely survived. She even, on her main stride turn, on her main stride unit, she flipped and copied, and I believe cloned and copied, flipping a Shibaraku Victor, and being able to then later attack with a Shibaraku Victor. So I barely survived. On my next turn, I went into Exterminate Dragon, which was the problem card that Zombie correctly pointed out that is actually pretty darn insane, giving my board an extra 20,000 extra power from the 2 open circles that the opponent had at the time. So I put up enough rear guards in play where she has to take a damage. She ends up seeing a non-trigger unit for a 6 damage. Yeah, so I put up some pretty good power. Like, she was not hitting any of her drive triggers or like damage triggers almost all game. The next card, we go to reveal. She goes to look at what the next card would have been for her. Her next damage check. Literally the over trigger. She does have a blue sky. Matter of fact, let me go ahead and find it. There it is. Starling says, I think, as far as I'm aware, I believe she also is on X/Twitter as well. So yeah, big shout outs to you, Starling. Matter of fact, she actually helped revise this exact tournament report. Well, at least for this particular round. Honestly, just wonderful. She was just vibing. Apparently, she already had a Worlds invite, so it was all gravy at the end. It is what it is. We both had fun with that game in particular, and that was fun. Wait, why did I open this twice? Thrice even. Nani? That's weird. Alright, round 3, I played against a player who goes by the name Coach. He was playing the Extreme Battler. He was playing a Nova Grappler deck where he went Victor. Now, in this game, I won the die roll for the second time ever, I believe. And I drew into one of the best cards in the entire premium format right now. Light Elemental Honolly. Light Elemental Honolly has a pretty darn good passive and activated ability. Its passive ability says that rearguards cannot attack during the 5th battle of the turn or more unless that player pays a cost of Counterblast 1. Now, it has an activated ability where if you were to remove this unit from the game during your turn until the end of your opponent's next turn, you, the player, have basically this ability, where if it's the 5th battle of the turn or more, and the opponent's rearguard would attack a Vanguard, it can't attack unless they pay Counterblast 1. So it's actually pretty good. Back to the game, though. So I rode onto Dragonic Vanquisher, and pretty much ended up staying on him the whole game because I couldn't draw into my other card. Or if I did, or even if I did have it, I opted not to ride it because I didn't really have a good grade 3 option. I didn't have a good stride option, and I always wanted to make sure I had the stride card advantage. In the early game, I called the Honolly, and I tried to stay on it for as long as I humanly could to pretty much put that kind of, just choke him out of the counterblast so he doesn't get as many attacks. In Victor, in the Nova Grappler deck, you counterblast a lot to do a lot of restanding of your rearguards. So, pretty much the one thorn in the side that could have potentially been the end of the game was a grade 2 card that he had, which has Resist, which I believe is also an Extreme Battler. I just need to figure out Extreme Battler Resist. Does this card exist? I need to remember what this card's name is called. There's not like a really intuitive way to necessarily search for cards in Vanguard that because all half of every card in Cardfight Vanguard has a pretty long drawn out card name. I can check the category for a Nova Grappler. There it is. No, wait, hang on. That is not the right card. Nova Grappler. I honestly thought that there was another Nova Grappler card that also had resist. I don't know if it was Gunzon or not. But I think it is an Extreme Battler. I just have to double check exactly which Extreme Battler it is. Extreme Battler grade 2. I don't know if it was Gold. Yes, it was Gol Sachi. This is the card that gave me a little bit of trouble. I'm glad I guessed this instantly. Extreme Battler Gol Sachi says that if the opponent's on a Victor, which if they're playing Extreme Battlers, they are going to be, it has the resist ability, and once per turn, the controller of this card may counterblast, and then when it attacks, you can then choose one of your other rear guards and stand it. It then also has the Rush ability, where on Generation Break 2, when it stands due to the ability of your card, it has an extra 7,000 power. This card pretty much was like what's stopping me from being able to have an empty front row, which actually plays into a misplay. I pretty much went into the next play I had after noticing that he had that Gol Sachi in play, I went into Exterminate Dragon on pretty much almost every subsequent turn, and also removing a rear guard from the front row when able to do so outside of Gol Sachi, drawing a card for each of those open front row rear guard circles, once again reinforcing that Exterminate Dragon is a problem card. And then I would have like a very, very powerful board. Now, my tournament report actually ends up going into 2 different pages because I ended up having a lot to write about. Now, on the following turn, they ended up striding into Favored Champ Victor, which let me go ahead and go look that card up real quick. Favored Champ. Yeah, why did I say Favored Champ? I think it's Favorite Champ Victor, which no, it doesn't retire? Which Victor did I go up against? Victor. It wasn't Favorite Champ then. Yeah, Victor. No. Yeah, Victor. It was one of the Victor strides. I think it was, I can find it. No, it was Winning Champ. Is it Winning Champ? Yeah, it was actually Winning Champ Victor, not Favorite Champ. I'm so sorry. I seem to have documented the wrong card. But yeah, he went into Winning Champ Victor and retired my Honolly. Unfortunately, Honolly doesn't have resist or any way to protect itself from getting retired, so I ended up losing that card. But I had a second Honolly, I think. I went into the second Exterminate stride and won that turn. But I also distinctly remember misplaying, forgetting that Cho-Oh can only stand when the opponent has an empty front row, which thankfully did not lose me the game. That minor misplay was inconsequential. The following round, I went up against somebody that goes by the name Seraph, but they also happen to have a Twitter account that goes by the name Grav Ravine. Shoutouts to you. We played the Narukami Mirror match, but funny story about this round. Somebody actually had to go to headquarters and to double check exactly. There was like a lot of people trying to sit there was like 3 people sitting at the exact same table right next to us for the premium game, and they forgot that the side events were on the other side, were not too far away at the other end of the venue. So I thought this would be a repair, but it wasn't, so I ended up playing the Narukami Mirror. I went first, but it was rough, so I ended up drawing a hand, but my opponent was able to rush me down in the opening stint. They were then able to ride Sweep Command Dragon, gaining to Excel 2 markers, then going into Exterminate Dragon, and I literally could not do anything because I literally didn't have any heal triggers to call any heal guardians. So, and I only had one nullify in my hand. He went for the push turn and won the game. So that round went pretty darn fast. Round 5, I went up against somebody who goes by the name Mr. Pishmans on Bushinavi. He was actually playing Chronojet, which was actually the deck I was very much looking to play for this event, only for me to realize that I was nowhere near ready to go to play that deck for premium. I ended up going first again. Sweep Command is what killed my run 2. I think Sweep Command ended a lot of players, will end a lot of players' runs in the premium. Oh, yikes. So yeah, I went first. I didn't necessarily draw the best hand defensively, so guarding a rush turn could have become incredibly difficult. So he rode into Mazer Gear Dragon, but then he called a board of more Mazer Gear Dragons, like an entire column. He got a critical trigger on his grade 1 turn. Then on my grade 2 turn, I had 3 copies of Spark Rays ready to go for the attack. I drew an extra 2 cards due to those on-hit, because of the on-hit pressure. I then drew into, which allowed me to draw into Dragonic Vanquisher, and then ride it to then go for Superior Stride. Now, after I went for my insane Zoros turn, and to gain as much advantage as possible, my opponent had the misfortune of needing to G-assist to go into Chronojet Dragon, and in order for him to Superior Stride, he actually ended up having to discard 2 cards from his hand. So he didn't necessarily have the best play, and could only get me to 5 damage. Then, the following turn, I went to Exterminate Dragon again, played Forbidal to then get 2 grade 3 or greater rear guards into play, and just won from there. Pretty fast game. The final round that I have documented was going up against somebody who goes by the name Andrew SP96, where he also played Kresnui. So, unfortunately, I ended up going second, but I drew a better hand than I did in round 1. So, my opponent actually didn't ride the Crestmaker, so he wasn't able to scale a whole bunch of power. Now, we both were able to get our Superior Stride without too much trouble, though. Now, on the next turn, he played Mizukaze, which ended up eventually locking me from being able to guard entirely. So I lost the game. And I don't have anything to talk about for round 7. There was a 7th round of Swiss. But at that stage, my round 7 opponent chose to forfeit because they had to go. So I ended the day for the premium event, 4 wins and 3 losses. And now that I've spent almost an hour and a half talking about exactly Cardfight Vanguard. Oh, goodness. All right. With that being said, that'll about do it for me talking about the Bushiroad Championship Series 2024-25 Tampa event. Before I go ahead and really quickly go over the Bushiroad before I quickly talk about what I can for the Bushiroad Summerfest event, does anybody here have any questions at all, or anything they'd like to say about either the standard or premium runs? Well, actually, I do want to really quickly show off some things, notably some pickups. And yes, I haven't indeed entirely turned on my webcam. I'm going to really quickly go ahead and just move my webcam to up here. Yeah. I need to get a new mouse soon. Is mayonnaise an instrument? No, Patrick. Mayonnaise is not an instrument. Horseradish is not an instrument either. I cannot believe you made me recite that entire quote on Stream Zombie. Yo, I'm in disbelief that you did that. There we go. All right. So, while I go ahead and start messing with the camera and all, I'm going to go ahead and pull out some things that I picked up at the event. So, if I can find my bag. I do have my Messiah, and I do have the Messiah deck I took with me to the tournament. It's right here in my hand. I didn't use this dumpster deck box because I couldn't fit it in my, what was it? I was not able to fit it inside my, event bag, okay? So I ended up just taking, like, my regular old deck box with me. So, while I was at the event, I picked up these Messiah card sleeves. I have to bring these up pretty darn close to the camera. This is the brand new Genesis Dragon Trans-Else Messiah, which I do not own. That set literally came out only a few days ago, and I'm gonna go ahead and go get my, I'm gonna go ahead and go pick up that card at a later point. What about Ketchup? Regardless of outcome, yeah, what about Ketchup? Is Ketchup an instrument? Nah. I disagree. Okay, maybe if you throw it into FL Studio. And probably the same for mayonnaise or horseradish. Regardless of outcome, which games do I feel that I played my best in? Probably, if I was to say so, for Standard Day, probably against the Odium player, who I fought tooth and nail to almost take the win. For one. Other games in Standard that I thought I did pretty darn good in. Yeah, sure, that Messiah game I did okay in. I thought I did okay until they hit the overtrigger. Premium is where I basically shined, though. Like, when we talk about the games that I went up against Beatrice and then later Coach, it was like absolute cinema for Cardfight Vanguard, and that's what happened. Yeah. Picked up some new card sleeves, like I already mentioned. And I picked up 2 brand new Cardfight Vanguard sealed deck products. This is my storage box for the Night Rose Stride deck set, which I picked up from Bushiroad's online online store. They had a pop-up store during the event at the venue, and they were selling select Bushiroad products, including a Night Rose Stride deck set, which I do own. I have to go ahead and go just get that out of my event bag. I also happen to have a storage box for the Hari deck set. Oh, welcome back, Eldritch, Esther. Yeah, so I also have this. I have both of these deck sets. I do have the cards. I just have to go get them from out of my bag. And I'm too lazy to go ahead and set up a playmat, but I double sleeve my cards, so everything is all well and good. Also, I really love this Gamegenic event bag here. It's like nothing short of compact. Matt, if I really want Gamegenic, I really want like a Gamegenic sponsorship so that I can promote this bag all the time. I'm serious. This is nothing short of the most wonderful wonderful storage box that I own. Yeah. This is my Hari deck set, as you can tell by the card sleeves that I have right here in my hand. And I also have the Night Rose deck set here with me, too. I also got this deck box, which features... I don't know this character's name offhand, but they're from the Cardfight Vanguard Divine Z anime. And as you can tell, this is a Night Rose deck set. Yeah, I haven't messed around with these too much, mostly because I haven't been buying much into Vanguard in advance of the up-and-coming Japan trip that I'll be taking, so... That was like most of the bulk of what I got. I got some new card sleeves, I got that new deck box, and I bought 2 Stride deck sets. But yeah, I had a fun time in Tampa for what it was worth. Mukai Jinky. Thank you. It was Jinky. Thank you very much. I really wish they had like a much larger selection of like deck boxes or something, but they mostly only had the characters from Divine Z when it went up. I like biology. It's the character's name. Yeah, thank you. Biology is interesting. What is it? Like, is it like arthropods or something that are all the really cool looking insects or whatever? Yeah. I also do like insects as well. Kinda. Like, I know, like, if they're on me, they're not the best, but they but they at the very least do look nice to admire. Yeah, and that's it for the small showcase of tournament pickups. I'm gonna go ahead and turn off my webcam. Yes, arthropods. Thank you for confirming that, Cautious. You're thinking of entomology. Oh, yeah, entomology. That's probably some sort of, Is that just, like, one of the... what are they called? Like, domains of... Is that, like, a biology domain or something? Oh, yeah. Talking about non-Vanguard stuff in a live stream featuring Cardfight Vanguard. Alright. Now I get to talk about Bushiroad Summerfest. This is going to be the next set of events that Bushiroad has announced for their up-and-coming tournament season. Now, this is mostly going to be a summer-themed event, which is going to be held at various regional qualifiers in over 20 locations across Asia, Oceania, Europe, the UK, and North and Latin America. It's a bunch of biology that focuses on insects. Oh yeah, entomology, yeah. It's a biology that does focus on insects, yeah. Alright, so... Not a whole lot has been revealed. The format for only Cardfight Vanguard has been announced thus far, but apparently... No, wait, hang on. All the other formats for the other games, such as Vice Shorts and Shadowverse Evolve, also exist. Okay. Alright then. I guess these things... For whatever reason, I thought these were specifically part of zoology. Zoology, not zoology. Zoology, not zoology. Oh, have I been saying it wrong my whole life? Oh my gosh, Esther. T-I-L Esther. I did not know that I've been pronouncing it wrong my whole life. Wow. Wow. But yeah, basically, this is a Team League event for the 3 games shown for the 3 main games that they play. There's Cardfight Vanguard, Vice Shorts, and Shadowverse Evolve. Now, I believe... I'm not exactly certain what's going to happen on day 1 and day 2, because none of the locations or event structure has ever been announced yet, but there's going to be quite a few side events, such as there's going to be like secondary events for the premium format and a new event called Lyrical Cup. Everyone's been saying it wrong, alongside dissection, not dissection. I think I knew about dissection like a little bit, thankfully, but zoology... Oh my gosh, you spelt it wrong, but I somehow pronounced it correctly. Sure, that happens. But yeah, as I mentioned before, this is going to be a brand new set of event formats going on around, all over the world, and I'm more than likely going to be entering the Cardfight Vanguard event, and possibly even the Shadowverse Evolve events, for the up-and-coming Bushiroad Summer Festival. It's going to be happening sometime between September and May. So, with that being said, I can't necessarily say what I'll be playing, but I am trying to build a brand new Vanguard team. So, the main thing I'm currently looking at doing right now is I'm going to be looking locally. I'm going to try to see if, pretty much, I've also put a self-imposed challenge on myself. And I'm going to make sure I remember this live stream. I'm going to enter the abyss. Oh yeah. What was it? Oh yeah, I was talking about this up and coming Team League thing. Yeah, I'm going to be entering the Vanguard event for Team League, and I'm going to go ahead and put a self-imposed challenge on myself. Find 2 other people who want to learn the Cardfight Vanguard card game and have them enter alongside me as my teammates. Bring back cookies. Oh, you're from the Abyss probably asking Esther to bring back cookies. That's all fair. I'm sure the Abyss probably has wonderful cookies, for all I know. I'm not sure, but yeah. Only the rules and regulations and some of the FAQs have been announced. The website actually looks pretty darn nice. I don't think Bushiroad's ever had like a cool dedicated website for any of their events outside of what they had for previous events up through BSF 24-25. This one's actually pretty neat, aside from the fact that this website is still in development. But yeah, you can play Vanguard, Vice Shorts, and Shadowverse Evolve. And I'm going to be building a team. And yeah, this is me also announcing publicly I'm going into this event somehow, some way. I'm not sure how I'm going to do it, but I will make it happen. I'm probably going to have to grind at work like hell, so that I can even afford to get the travel costs for this upcoming event at least taken care of in some capacity. So, oh man, I'm getting tired just talking about Cardfight Vanguard all stream. But yeah, I don't have a whole lot to talk about beyond that. I'm gonna go ahead and take a quick breather while I wait to go ahead and go get out what I need for Japan. I have a small outline as to what we are doing, which includes an entire full battle plan. So, yeah. If anyone's got any further questions for me about Vanguard, about me just in general, I can attempt to answer questions about the music game thing, but I'll try to keep them brief. So, yeah. Little Workers Island. Oh, that planet that you see in the background, that you saw in the background of the stream loading screen and and what you're seeing now, is actually the planet Cray. I kid you not. Is there a way for me to... I got a better idea on how to do this. I'm going to save this as a PDF. I'm going to just view this as a PDF on my side rather than have Google Docs open. So I will just go ahead and hope for the best. I'm referencing here. What are you referencing? This is a good question. For whatever reason, I feel like I'm lost on the reference. Little Workers Island. This wants to open up a new tab, but not open my PDF. Hello. You should play Solar Ash. Maybe. We'll see. I've got a whole lot going on with life and everything. I barely have enough time. I'll be honest. I barely have enough time. Little Workers Island and Solar Ash. Oh, I'm gonna presume is that a reference to Sky, I guess? Again, I really wish I had more time to play more video games. I barely have enough time for Beatmania 2DX on Tuesdays. Matter of fact, there was some times, like, for the past couple of weeks on the 17th and 10th, no, not 17th and 10th, but the 11th and 18th, I ended up not being able to play Beatmania 2DX. So, again, these sorts of things do happen, but maybe I'll get around to. But it's possible I might be able to get around to grinding more, to playing Sky and then grinding it more. We'll see. There's a lot of games that a lot of my friends have been telling me to play. Too many games, too many games, too little time, it feels like. I can... Oop, I got it wrong. It's 3D Workers Island. 3D Workers Island, not a reference to Solar Ash or to it's not a reference to Solar Ash or to Sky. There we go. Okay. So, Solar Ash is a game made by Heart Machine. Yeah, a lot of fun little video games that I really wish I had more time to play. I'm gonna go ahead and bring back up Firefox, because now I've got this. Now I'm gonna go ahead and quickly go over the small little battle plan that my folks and I have concocted. So, we are leaving tomorrow for Montreal, Canada, which will be arriving just after 9 in the evening, and then leaving tomorrow morning right just around after noon, arriving on Tokyo on the Wednesday at, I think, about 4 p.m. ish or so. The first day on our first day on Wednesday, we're gonna have a free evening in Tokyo to do just basically whatever. Not a whole lot to even write home about. The following day, we're going to try to get to Osaka. We've got a small little, what is it called? An excursion group where all the hotels and everything like that within Osaka and the other parts of South Japan are a part of. I'll be joining that group. Once the excursion ends, we're going to be, when we return to Osaka, we're going to be checking into a different hotel for about a couple of nights to then explore Dotonbori. And then the following day, we're still going to be in Osaka, and we're actually going to be visiting Universal Studios in Japan. I'm going to be documenting this trip a lot. And then the following day after we finish up at USJ, we're going to be going to Fujiwaguchiko, which is a small, which is like a tourist town thing near the base of Mount Fuji, and we're going to be taking various trains to get there. And we're also going to be checking out the Sengen Shrine alongside other nearby locations. On Pi Day, we'll be going back to Tokyo to explore Tokyo a bit further. And we'll be at Shinjuku Station, doing certain activities like Izakaya Street. We booked a reservation at the Samurai Restaurant Time. And then we'd also be, and then the other thing is to find the. On the assistance of my younger brother, he wants to go to the Kabukicho Romance District, so I'm going with him. And then while out there, apparently there's a Godzilla head, so I'm going to go find the Godzilla head. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to be going to Meiji Jingu, which is Sensoji, Tokyo Sky Tree, and possibly other things in Metro Tokyo in that area, and maybe possibly going to Odaiba to visit the Gundam base. And then the final day is going to be Akihabara, where I end up going basically almost near broke. So yeah. That's about it for the small little things about Japan. If anybody's got further questions about the Japan trip, I'll try to answer them here too. I am very organized. I try to be. I'm somehow more organized when writing my, what is it called? When doing that sort of writing things and actually planning than I am with my own room. So it goes to show, don't go broke. Unfortunately, as much as I really would not like to Esther, unfortunately, because I'm going to be in Japan, that's sadly just going to be an this is just sadly going to be an inevitability. If I do get that you're looking out for me, but it's Japan. I make no promises. So, yeah. Yeah, I don't really have much else to, unfortunately, I don't really have much else to talk about. take lots of cash, physical cash. I'm already well ahead of you on that one. I'm planning on, I'm definitely going to convert your, going to be converting my dollars to yen. They use it a lot in Japan. No, yeah, cash is king in Japan. In spite of, like, unlike, say, here in the U.S., where basically, what is it called? Like, using payment cards like credit and debit cards are at near ubiquity here in the U.S. In Japan, it might not be as universally adopted, especially where cash is it very accepting. Don't make me take your money. Oh my gosh. I mean, yeah. Unfortunately, I did already say where I would be going within the bounds of my trip. So, but yeah. Don't make me take your money, but yeah. I also have to be smart because there's a few friends of mine from here in the States that have things that they want me to go get them. So I've got to make sure that I'm accounting for them too. Which I'm going to go ahead and go make myself a list in a little bit too. So yeah. They love physical cash and they love QR codes to... Oh, and here they love QR codes. I will find you. Oh my gosh. I was gonna say, especially if I'm in like Tokyo. Actually, no, it might be kind of easy to find me because, like, unfortunately, the way I'll be dressed and everything, I'm probably going to feel out from the crowd. But then again, at that same time, I am a foreigner, so it is what it is. So, yeah. That more or less just wraps up what's going on with the Japan trip. I don't have a whole lot to talk about Japan now, mostly because I haven't gone there yet. I'm about to leave tomorrow, so... And again, I do apologize if this stream just ended up not being so great, and I understand that it wasn't as engaging when I start going off and talking about a game like Vanguard. Thigh highs in a frilly dress. Okay, no, not like that, but... Not like that in that sense, unfortunately. If I had the ability to do that, I would absolutely stick out, but not that badly. I will say that I will at least be having some amount of layers because it is going to be rather cool in both Tokyo and Osaka as when I get over there. So that would be nice, but unfortunately I can't do that because I'll be going with two of my own folks who, and I wouldn't want to necessarily embarrass myself in that regard. That would, again, the thought seems absolutely lovely. Maybe I'll do something like this at like a BCS. Maybe. We'll see. Maybe I'll do it for the up and coming BSF event. I don't know yet. I want to wear thigh highs in a frilly dress. Absolutely go for it, as I will absolutely say, if you are in a space that you can do so. Absolutely go for it. So you do you. I personally, it's just I'm in a space where, like, I'm gonna be in a foreign country, and I've pretty much packed for the weather going there, more or less. Oh my gosh, I am tired. What the heck? Yeah, like, I don't have them though. Oh yeah. I would do, again, I'm kind of with you in the same boat, Esther. I don't have anything like that either. My parents don't really care what I think. Sadly, I cannot say the same for my own folks, especially on one side of my family. So unfortunately, I just put up. I mean, there might be a sneaky way to hide something, but I'm not sure. I mean, no, wait, there is a way. Get one of those, like, cover go eep. Yeah, once I'm done with the stream and I'm done and I'm done verifying everything with my bag and everything, I'm not even going to be setting an alarm clock. The flight doesn't leave until 6 p.m. I can sleep in if I were so inclined. I'm just like, I've had a very long weekend. I had to work like a pretty long shift from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Saturday. And why do I have the best family out of all my friends? Why do you have the best family out of all your friends? I mean, yeah, I get that. I'm not even bragging. I totally get what you're saying. It's awesome. I mean, I'm at an age where in theory I could be on my own. I'm just not in the position to be on my own. I'm still with my folks, sadly, but they're still supporting me for what it's worth, and they're part of the reason why I'm even going to be able to be living out my dream of going to Japan. Set an alarm clock anyways, but set it much later so you don't have to worry. Sure, I guess I'll set like a 9 a.m. alarm of some kind. Jet lag is going to was that rude? It did not come off as rude to me, Esther. You're good. You are perfectly fine. I'm not going to take that as rude. You're good. You're good. I wouldn't worry too much about it. It takes... I'll be honest. Again, what may seem misconstrued as rude, I do get what you're saying, but it's like, I don't think that was rude. No way. I didn't interpret it as rude. And then again, I'm so out of it that it's like, maybe I'll miss that sort of thing. But I totally get it. With that being said, yeah, I'm gonna be out for over 2 weeks, so I'm gonna miss being able to consistently live stream. The only other thing I may say is there is a possibility that I may actually be able to guerrilla stream, depending as to whether or not I'm going to be able to rent an entire 2DX cab for about an hour. Actually, you know what? That would actually be nothing short of perfect if I'm going to be able to, like, go to, like, one of the arcades and pay a small set fee to rent out a 2DX cab that has a full stream setup for an hour or two. That would be nothing short of perfect for me. Yeah. With that, I think I'm just gonna end the stream here. I've run out of things to talk about. I've already ran my course, absolutely mouthing off about Vanguard and trying to not alienate players, not trying to alienate anybody on my stream who does not play Vanguard or won't. But still. Alright. You guys take care, and I'm just going to say, before I go ahead and log off for the stream for the evening, everybody here take care. Hatsune Miku. It's funny because I think I do like a nice Vocaloid song, honestly. But with that being said, I want to thank each and every single one of you guys for coming out to my final stream before I go ahead and go abroad. I did want to do it, and just time was not on my side up until just now for me to be able to do something like this. For all the people who stuck around and listened to me blather on, thank you so very much for staying by, and I'm going to be missing you all a lot. I will say real quick before I go ahead and log off the stream, there is a thing I'm going to really quickly... There's a couple things I'm going to leave a couple more links here. I already did so for the last 2DX live, but I do want to let you guys know I will be documenting my trip. I have an Instagram. And I also happen to have a Blue Sky. So I would highly recommend, if you want to see stuff, if you want to see things from... If you want to keep up with me while I'm in Japan, check out both of my Instagram and my Blue Sky that I've left in the chat here. I'm also going to go ahead and post that up to my Discord servers. But yeah, cringe, just kidding, good dreams, and have a sweet night. Bye, have a good night.
Would you please get the garbage?
Yes.
Take it out to the road.
Well, it looks like I've got an errand to do after after this is over. Once again, thank you all for tuning in, and I'll see you guys back once I'm back in Japan. Have a nice night, y'all.